Tonight, 140 new COVID-19 cases recorded, taking the total of cases to 44,642, while the death of a 78-year-old woman from St. James increases fatalities to 723. Persons who received the first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine urged to continue to protect themselves against the virus as the country is still in the community transmission phase of COVID-19. Still tonight, clinical coordinator at the Cornwall Regional Hospital, Dr. Delroy Frey, says they are seeing less hospitalizations of COVID-19 patients.
This week we have seen a decrease in the amount of inpatients that we have for COVID. We can breathe a little easier.
And Prime Minister Andrew Holness calls on larger economies to contribute more to building resilience in the fight against climate change.
We have raised our ambition and now call on major economies to step up and sprint with us to the finish line. We can win this, but we must act now.
Good evening. The total of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Jamaica has increased with 140 new cases, taking the total now to 44,642. Of the new cases, 87 are females and 52 males, ranging in age from 1 day to 97 years. The Ministry of Health and Wellness also reported the death of a 78-year-old woman from St. James, taking virus-related fatalities now to 723. Kingston and St. Andrew recorded 36 new cases, St. Catherine recorded 37 cases, St. Elizabeth 4 cases, St. James 14 cases, Trelawney recorded 17 cases, St. Mary 10, Clarendon, St. Anne and Hanover recorded 3 cases each, Manchester and Westmoreland 2 cases each, St. Thomas 5 cases, and Portland recorded 4 cases. Meanwhile, the total of recoveries as of yesterday is 20,275, with a total of 23,291 active cases. According to the Ministry of Health and Wellness, 16 patients are currently moderately ill and 27 are considered critically ill. In other news tonight, Chief Medical Officer, CMO, Dr. Jacqueline Bisaser-McKenzie has emphasized that Jamaica is still in the community transmission phase of COVID-19. Therefore, persons who received the first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine must continue to protect themselves against the virus. Speaking at a virtual COVID Conversations press briefing held recently, the CMO pointed out that this is necessary as many persons around may have COVID-19. She added that if an individual is infected in the first days after receiving the vaccine, they will have no protection and therefore may develop a severe illness. The CMO also pointed out that within approximately 2 to 3 weeks after receiving the first AstraZeneca vaccine, persons will not be prevented from getting the COVID-19 virus. Dr. Bisaser-McKenzie also stressed that it is important for Jamaicans to continue to abide by the protocols outlined by the government. Persons who have already received the first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine will be given their second dose based on appointments starting in May. The Ministry of Health and Wellness vaccination program started on March 10. To date, 135,473 persons have received the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, which represents 7% of the target population of 1,924,759 persons. Still making the news tonight, beginning Monday, April 26, vaccinations will be done for all Phase 1 persons by appointment only. Now, Phase 1 persons include those 60 years and older, healthcare workers, members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force JCF, the Jamaica Defense Force JDF, Jamaica Fire Brigade, the Passport, Immigration and Citizenship Agency PICA, and Jamaica Customs. This was stated by Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton in an address to the House of Representatives this week. He also pointed out that persons in the priority list are encouraged to use the web portal at www.moh.gov.jm to make appointments or call 888-1-LOVE. That's 888-663-5683. Dr. Tufton further stated that with the current state of vaccine supplies, the government is expecting COVAX to make a promised delivery within the next 10 days or less. Still making Mello TV news tonight, clinical coordinator at the Cornwall Regional Hospital, CRH, in St. James, Dr. Delroy Frey, says they are seeing less hospitalizations of COVID-19 patients at the facility.
This week we have seen a decrease in the amount of inpatients that we have for COVID. 2 to 3 weeks ago, we used to run about 55 to 65 patients. This morning, we have 28 COVID patients in hospital, 22 positive with 6 suspected cases, so I put it at 28. We also noticed that our bed occupancy has also improved a great deal. To this morning, we have 265 patients in hospital. So that has really helped us a great deal. We can breathe a little easier. We are able to manage our patients. Still a bit tough, but in a more comfortable setting.
Dr. Frey credited the reduction in cases and hospitalizations to the government's weekend lockdowns.
When you reflect on, 3-4 weeks ago compared to now, something must have worked, and the only thing I could account that to is the lockdown. So I believe it's working, and it's working very well. I believe the awareness is even more now as well with COVID. And the other day when we had the blitz, you see how people take the vaccine, and prior to that people were reluctant. So I believe the message is going out and people are getting there. And when you walk around now, you are seeing that people are adhering to the protocols. I see more people wearing masks. I see more patients coming to the hospital who are wearing their masks. So I believe the message is going out, and I think we are getting there. I'm an optimist, and I believe we are going to conquer this thing with the education that is going on and the willingness of the people to comply with what is going on.
Dr. Frey pointed out that the benefits of taking the COVID-19 vaccine outweigh the side effects that can arise from it.
When you look at the benefit of the vaccine versus the side effects that you can get from the vaccine, there's no question that taking the vaccine far outweighs the minor complication that can arise from this. And we have been monitoring the situation here in Western Jamaica, and I can say thank God we haven't had any really sad or bad outcomes that are related to the vaccine itself. The usual fever and little malaise the day after, feeling unwell, usually recovers within 24 to 48 hours, and that's what we are seeing. Again, it's sort of pretty early, but the evidence as we are now is saying that the benefit far outweighs any minor complication that might arise from that.
In other news tonight, Commissioner of Police Major General Anthony Anderson is reporting a reduction in crime during the 3 weekend lockdowns that were implemented as part of measures to curtail the spread of the novel coronavirus, COVID-19. He said that during the first weekend lockdown, there was an increase in murders, but the rates steadily declined over the next 2 weekends. Addressing the Crime Consensus, Monitoring and Oversight Committee's digital briefing yesterday, Major General Anderson explained that the change in strategy led to some quick responses to things that were unfolding to try and keep them under control. The police commissioner noted that the message is going out that it's not going to be easy to commit crimes and get away with them. Continuing with the news tonight, officers assigned to the Narcotics Division seized approximately 857 pounds of marijuana and arrested 3 men, 1 Jamaican and 2 Nicaraguans during an operation in New Forest District in Manchester on Wednesday. Reports coming into our news center tonight are that at approximately 10 p.m., law enforcement officers were in the area when a premises was searched that was occupied by the 3 men. During the operation, the police seized approximately 857 pounds of marijuana, 238,000 Jamaican dollars, several lead sheets, and lottery scamming paraphernalia were also seized. The illicit drug has an estimated street value of 3,428,000 Jamaican dollars. The men's identities are being withheld pending further investigations. As we continue with the news tonight, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says an accessible and equitable climate finance mechanism is required for the world to build resilience in the fight against climate change.
The need for meaningful climate action has never been greater. Jamaica is heartened that the United States has rejoined the Paris Agreement, an important expression of global solidarity for climate action. Governments are forced to choose between addressing today's crises and building resilience to mitigate against future shocks. Notwithstanding these challenges, Jamaica has enhanced its national determined contributions to target a 60% reduction in emissions by 2030. We, like all small island developing states and many developing countries, remain committed to advancing climate action, and we are determined to build forward stronger, better, and greener.
Speaking on Earth Day yesterday at the Leaders' Summit on Climate Change, Prime Minister Holness acknowledged the commitment of world leaders to $100 billion per year to support climate action in developing countries.
The world committed to $100 billion per year to support climate action in developing countries. It is critical that this commitment not only be honored, but that the ambition be increased and major emitters should contribute more to its financing. We welcome President Biden's announcement in this regard. I encourage all governments to play their part in achieving this goal, and the private sector must also be engaged. While increasing the quantum of financing is necessary, it will not be sufficient to address the needs of small island developing states unless it is accessible and flexible enough to target support for our vulnerabilities. While some progress has been made, significant hurdles remain in accessing climate finance, and the pace of implementation does not reflect the urgency of the climate crisis.
Now, at the same time, Prime Minister Holness outlined specific actions that need to be taken.
We need to take specific actions to include: 1, the establishment of a global disaster fund to help SIDS recover and manage disaster risk. 2, the development of innovative risk-informed financing for disasters and climate events. 3, the inclusion of vulnerability measures as the prime consideration in determining access for financing rather than only income criteria. And 4, the scaling up of debt for climate adaptation swaps to simultaneously address climate crises and the systemic debt issues affecting already burdened developing countries. Jamaica has great sprinters, and we know that a great start does not guarantee a win. It requires momentum building. In this case, an accessible and equitable climate finance mechanism. We have raised our ambition and now call on major economies to step up and sprint with us to the finish line. We can win this, but we must act now.
Prime Minister Holness was specially invited to speak at the Leaders Summit hosted by U.S. President Joe Biden. And those are some of the stories making news. We will return with other stories as Minister of Tourism Edmund Bartlett says that Jamaica continues to command the attention of the main global tourism players and remains top of the mind in the marketplace. And the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, CPFSA, says that they are crafting a long-term good parenting campaign aimed at encouraging good parenting techniques within the society. But first, we'll go to a break and then it's over to Christopher Scott with the very latest in sports.